Hi, this is Ken Gidge, and this is The Art of Politics, and this is the only show of its type. Why? Simply, I am a Democrat, and my partner right here, Mr. O'Brien, Representative O'Brien, is a Republican. How are you?
I'm doing well today. How are you?
Well, we've had quite a times going on. Why don't we go through this, because this is our paper, the Telegraph, which was sold.
Before we get to the
Yes.
point where you're going to tell folks how much you like marijuana, because is that what I
Yeah,
saw
that's,
there?
that's what.
Yeah.
All right, okay.
That's out of,
All right.
I want to welcome some new viewers. We have viewers from Londonderry, Amherst, and Claremont who are now watching the show, and so I want to say welcome to them.
Welcome, and also we do have viewers. We've had viewers from Goffstown, and we believe we'll have more coming on as time goes on. So we're going to have quite a group, and I'm sorry that I did see your notes, and we should have welcome to Nashua also.
And I know they have this great curiosity, Ken, to find out what kind of water pipe do you use when it comes to marijuana there.
Okay, you see, I don't know could you explain to the people what a water pipe is? I don't know.
I can remember like 20 years ago I saw this movie and they talked about it, so I'm drawing on this old knowledge that came from cinema sources, so it might be right, might not be right.
What's really funny that you would say water pipe, they're now smoking tobacco, simple tobacco with water pipes. They've been doing that for centuries.
Yeah, well, I suppose that's where it came from originally.
Yeah, no. But we're talking about a water pipe and marijuana, and that's basically what the headlines are saying right here. First, the Telegraph has been sold to an organization, or by the time this will be shown, it will be sold. And I believe the editor or the publisher is no longer going to be there, Terrace Williams. I think he's has left us. But as you mentioned, the headlines, fire from 2 marijuana hearings. Now,
that's pretty good. That's pretty
yes,
good.
I guess I like that.
Following the British tradition of puns and headlines. That's a good headline.
Medical use supporters push for the option to grow plants at home. Would you agree with that?
You know what I agree with? I think smoking marijuana is a waste of time and a waste of money and not particularly desirable. But the effect it has, the worst effect it has, is on society as we pervert our law enforcement community, our judiciary, into trying to prevent something which isn't desirable, but nonetheless isn't as harmful as the cure.
Let me see. Was it the last week or the week before you were standing up for people who we were charging them an extra 30 cents a pack for cigarettes, and I said that's good, and you said no, people should have the freedom to, shouldn't people have the freedom to smoke marijuana?
There is a difference
Cigarettes
between marijuana.
Are worse than marijuana, yes.
There's a difference between marijuana, and so you have to, the answer I would have to that, therefore, is if someone is smoking marijuana and causing themselves to become intoxicated and thereby exposing others to danger, they're operating train or cars and all, but that's not a good thing. On the other hand, and this is where I think the consistency lies, you're absolutely right. If someone's doing nothing more than choosing to waste their lives, which I think, smoking marijuana, which is intended to be, immediately intoxicating, and causing themselves to eat too much food, which I gather is something you do if you
have
smoke
all this knowledge about the product.
I'm a student of American culture, so I think we understand what it does. Who's it for me to say that you shouldn't do that? And moreover, what we've done through this marijuana prohibition is create the same crime subculture that when we tried to prohibit entirely the use of alcohol. You know, again, you shouldn't drink alcohol to intoxication. Alcohol probably is much more of a dangerous drug than marijuana.
Geez, I don't have to interrupt you. You're saying everything that's
Yeah.
factual.
Yeah,
Alcohol is.
and so on the other hand, we learned through bitter experience that you can't prevent people from being foolish, and to the extent you do, you hurt a lot of other people who aren't acting
Well,
foolish.
you know, that's not quite fair because there's reasons for this. Now, if we didn't,
I'm talking generally, though. Obviously, there may well be some medical uses, so I'm not a
well,
physician.
that's my
I don't know.
that's my point. My point is quite simply, if we called it something else like Zyrtex, and we said Zyrtex is good for people who have, you know, eye problems. Zyrtex is good for people who have multiple sclerosis, which the whole body is in pain, or people who have cancer who do not have an appetite, who are not eating, who are losing weight. If you said Zyrtex, fine. But when you say marijuana and all of a sudden the great companies can't make money on it, all of a sudden, gee, it's something really bad. But medical, when you say medical marijuana, what would you rather have? Somebody, you talk about being intoxicated. Some of these pills, I had a back operation, for God's sakes, and I was given OxyContin. I mean, I was just paralyzed.
Right, right. And again, I'm not a user of marijuana. I don't know quite the effect it has on you. My sense is that there are those who believe if they're suffering from, you know, cancer and they don't have an appetite, or they're suffering from the pain of multiple sclerosis, or they're suffering from, is it the pressure in your eyes, glaucoma, I think it is, that somehow it alleviates that. And I'm willing to accept on faith their belief that it helps them, and more importantly, I'm willing to promote their freedom to address that. I've listened to the other side too of this, which is any thing that those marijuana cigarettes do for these people can be replicated through other painkillers and so forth. Perhaps. But you want to know what? If someone thinks this is the best way to treat myself and they're not harming anyone else, then they ought to be allowed to do that.
Well, then you're not really putting your stamp of saying that people, it's okay to smoke marijuana if you
I don't think it's okay to smoke marijuana. I don't think it's okay to drink to intoxication. I don't think it's okay to do it, but there's a proper role for government, and there's instances where government acts improperly and ultimately to the detriment of all of us. It acted improperly, when, for example, in the 1920s and early 30s, when it said to people who don't drink alcohol, we're going to make it a crime, and, you know, all this other things they did. And so too now, so we find that the attempts to prevent the use of marijuana is not particularly successful.
50 years of having a drug war,
probably longer
not
than
successful.
that.
I hope we all agree.
Yeah, and
it's
it's harmed you know, society. You know, there's times you have to make hard choices. You know, I'm not saying we should in any way decriminalize, you know, heroin or some of these other really devastating drugs.
No.
But with marijuana, again, so long as somebody isn't using it to drive while they drive a car or operate machinery in a way that can endanger others.
Well, I'm glad you feel that way. I think it's important. In fact, I think it was something like, was it 288 to 64? In other words, if it went before the governor and the governor vetoed it, we could override the governor's veto.
This last vote,
Yeah.
Several weeks back.
Yes. So that's people are now beginning to see. You know, there's a new generation coming up. You know, you and I are old guys. Believe it or not, we have a.
I'm part of that new generation. Ken. I'm looking at you, and I can see.
I was just thinking, yeah, we are the new generation. No, we're not. I'm afraid not. When someone was talking about the Vietnam War being, what, 40 years ago?
Let's see, Saigon was evacuated,
years
what,
ago?
74, 75?
I don't
So,
know. All of a sudden,
yeah,
I'm
so
going, that can't be.
It's 36, 38 years ago, I think.
Yeah, so I mean, I always think of wars as World War II. Now, people, my son is talking, when he talks about wars, he talks about Vietnam. So we're kind of behind the times to a degree.
I think about this every once in a while because I can remember when I was a young fellow in middle school, and I always liked history a lot. And so that would have been at a point where World War I was about the same distance from those times as those times are from now.
Wow, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, you lose track of how time does pass.
Well, we just brought it to our, and I guess time is really gone by. But also, there is a bill to decriminalize marijuana for small amounts, which would be, I guess, a tenth of an ounce or a half an ounce or less than that, or so it's almost nothing. So in other words, if somebody who wishes to go to college and does have marijuana on them and they get caught, you know, it might take it away and send them home, or as if they're intoxicated, maybe take the keys away from them, or if intoxication with marijuana it becomes major, then there will be laws, obviously.
And we have that. A bill I sponsored last term, and I took quite a bit of flack from a lot of folks who I really respect, was expanding the definition of driving while intoxicated. You probably remember the bill. What it did was say it's just not alcohol, but it can, and it's just not illegal drugs, but it can be drugs, for example, that are legal, but you've allowed yourself to become intoxicated. Or maybe you took the OxyContin, for example, and you realize I shouldn't be driving a car, no. And so it would allow the police to charge you for that. And it was a hard bill for me to sponsor because I don't like to do things that limit liberty and limit and expand government authority over us.
On you want people off the road.
On the other hand, you know, driving a car is a pretty darn dangerous thing to do if you don't have your faculties about you, and it can immediately affect others, as we've seen. And so, you know, we have to make some choices.
Well, this is going to be interesting because I think by the time this show airs, one way or another, we're going to find out something is going to happen. But the argument is just getting, you know, again, we're getting to a point where you don't have to smoke it. I mean, everyone's heard the stories about brownies. I mean, that's a fact. But having said that, why doesn't somebody come along and just say, hey, I can make capsules with it? And that's true. You can do that.
I don't know.
And I think when you think of marijuana, you think of smoking it.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I guess I do think of smoking it. It has, what's the substance it has in it? THC, so I guess you could put that in pill form. I don't know. But there it may well need regulation because you don't know the strength of the pills.
No, I think you're correct because you haven't smoked it. There was a time, and got to remember, in the 60s, I was living in Boston for a period of time while going to school, so absolutely, I have smoked marijuana. And I'm just one of those people who smoked it, and it was okay. But, you know, it's been like 30 years. I mean, you know, I mean...
Where do you think it's going to go in this? We're past it in the House at this point, and it's over in the Senate. Any sense of what's going to happen over there, Ken? Have you talked with folks?
I think they're going to have to look at, I think there's a good opportunity for them to look at what took place in the House. I think it was, as I said, 280-something to
pretty lopsided.
64, pretty lopsided. So if they're sort of heading in one direction, and I think our president now of the Senate is really a politician. I mean, but it's the first year. If this was the second year, he might not, you know, try to shoot it down. I'm not really sure, but it would be nice to get it to the governor. But I'm not sure it's going to go that way.
Really?
What do you think?
I think my sense is that there's sufficient numbers over there to get it out, you know, to get it as a enacted bill. Whether the governor will veto it or not, I really don't know. There's still an undercurrent of real opposition to this becoming law. You know, I know within my party, people have been, you know, I think my party's position in the platform, if I'm not mistaken, is to oppose the decriminalization of marijuana. And there's been people who are, you know, when I talk to them, obviously very disappointed that I'd take this position.
No, but once it's decriminalized, we're not talking about having this much. We're talking about having 1/10 of a pencil.
Yeah, I know,
Where?
but the logic of that somewhat concerns me as well. If you're going to say it's okay to have, a pencil amount worth of marijuana, but you can't have a cup's worth, well, what difference does it make? Other
Because
than,
we do not want people to sell it. We want it to be treated as like a pills,
right,
or and that's how I see it. I
yeah.
mean, you might see it differently.
I don't know, it's just, it's kind of the logic of you saying to someone, you can have it, but you can't give it to them. It doesn't appear out of nowhere. Somehow or another, it's, I guess, I don't know.
Well, I
Or
don't
maybe
know.
they grow it, maybe people grow it, maybe that's what we're saying.
I don't know why. Look, it's being smuggled across the borders all the time. There's people making loads of money, people getting killed doing this.
Well, I think most marijuana is indigenous to the United States at this point. It's
oh, they still.
do they still? Well, it just occurs to me it's such great volume, unlike small amounts of heroin where you can make a lot of money for bringing it in. It's like it's like trying to smuggle Bally High wine as opposed to Glenfiddich Scotch. I'd rather get more value to the volume rather than a $3 bottle of wine and go to jail for that. I'd rather smoke.
Well, this is going to be something, and I thought I'd bring it up. Also, as I said, the Telegraph is sold. It's so is a good opportunity. We should probably get the new publisher to come in and sit down and talk to us. That might be nice. See out of politics.
Super idea. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's very good.
we better do this before somebody else does it.
You and I ought to do it quickly.
Quickly, very, very, very quickly. So we've had basically a week off. Have you done anything of great importance? When I say a week, I had 2 days up there this week, and that's off. In other words, we didn't have a full house.
I haven't been up there this week.
You haven't?
No, I have not. No, I'll be back for the next session day. Have I done anything interesting? With a lot of publicity, traveling around talking to people about the potential for a congressional run. Did a television show today.
With who, may I ask?
It's actually over in Derry with a couple of legislators over there, Brian Ciccarello and Jim Webb, and they hosted.
And who did you?
They hosted.
It was you, and who else was there?
Representative Dave Campbell.
David Campbell.
Yeah.
David's from my ward. I'm from his ward.
Yeah.
And he.
Funny that he wouldn't admit that. I asked him about that. He said, "Ken who?"
Yeah. I got one more vote than you did, David, so I'm sure you know who I am.
No, he didn't say that at all. No, he actually said he'd be glad to come on our show.
Yeah, well, that's what he's been saying.
Right.
Yeah, we will see.
Well, I was very, very nice to him. So I think, hopefully we can get him in before he watches this show, because I think I've suckered him in here.
Well, I guess we're almost done. Would you say we're halfway down the year or 3/4?
Oh, we are. We've gone past what is called crossover day. That's where House has to have all its bills to the Senate and vice versa, which I guess is technically the halfway point on the first half of the term. A lot of important legislation still to be finally voted on. They have our version of the budget. We're kind of watching as they work on it. Important issues that remain, obviously, is how much spending is there going to be, is the additional spending going to be funded, whether it's going to be, for example, in one area, the gas tax that we passed.
That's what you talked today.
That's right.
Mr. Campbell.
Or the casino bill, which is, I think, the favorite of a number in the
Is it going to
Senate.
pass? Is it going to? What do you think?
Well, it's going to get out of the Senate. Is it going to pass here? If it was last year when I was living, breathing, whipping numbers of the House, I probably could have given you a pretty good answer to that, down to like 4 or 5 votes. My sense is, and this is just real gut feeling, is the legislature, the House hasn't changed so much this term that we're going to vote it in. But that's just my sense.
I think the sad part of what you just said is what you just said.
Right.
I mean, I would like to see it happen. Look, it's going to happen in Massachusetts. Now, if it's in Massachusetts, 100 miles away from New Hampshire, we're still going to lose a lot of money. But from what I understand, there's an old racetrack that's 35, 40 miles away from us. Is it Suffolk Downs or?
Is this where they're going to put it?
Well,
yeah, over in East
they
Boston.
were-
Yeah, it's over in East Boston.
So if you stop for a moment and think about that, we lose all the revenues, but what people talk about is all the problems that go along with it.
Well,
Having-
not entirely. Certainly, the closer you put a casino to people, I think it's fairly clear the gambling addiction rate goes up. I'm of two minds on that. One mind says, why should we let those who aren't going to become addicted, why should we say to them, you can't do something because 2% of the population can't handle it. It's like telling people you can't smoke cigarettes because, you're going to have an addiction rate of 18%. My idea is, if you're an adult, make your decision. So that's one concern. But I've expressed to you what my biggest concern is, and that's the effect it has on governance in New Hampshire, the effect it would have on the legislature.
What? How?
Let me give you
How?
both a personal example and, personal example and a historical one. Personal example is, my brother is a lawyer down in Rhode Island. He's a pretty good criminal lawyer. He gets good clients down there, and doesn't reveal any confidence, as he's had Supreme Court judges down there as his clients. And one of his clients was a fellow who, from another country, who was charged with a conspiracy to bribe the Speaker of the House down there in order to move legislation through to allow greater gambling days or video gambling days in Lincoln down there. They're parked down there. I guess it's a horse, a dog, I don't know. No, there was never any allegation that the Speaker had actually been contacted or any legislature. It was just a conspiracy. That
So
illustrated
I know, but
to
do you
my
think
mind.
that would happen up here?
Yeah, because it happened there. The lieutenant governor, I think it was, in Florida, just had to resign because she was involved. And this about 2 or 3 weeks ago, she resigned because there were some allegations of similar allegations down there. Gambling is a heavily regulated industry. The payouts are regulated. The qualification to participate in
can't
it.
even go in the counting rooms.
It's
Right.
heavily regulated. And so you're going to have that industry constantly at the legislature for change of number of days. And you can have video machines open, what the payoffs are, how many video machines you can have in this location or that location. The historic reason I wanted to talk to you about is back from about the 1840s, 1850s to the 1920s, 1930s, the railroad industry in New Hampshire was big, very big. And you and I, if we'd been legislators back there, you know what we would have got? Something very important, particularly before the automobile. We would have received 2 free passes to go anywhere on the railroads while we were legislators. Very good benefit. It was a big benefit. If you lived in New Boston and Mount Vernon, you could take a train right to Nashua. Just walk a quarter mile, pick up the train. It was important. The railroads would take that away from you immediately. You vote the wrong way on a bill, they'd take it away from you. It's fair to say.
Isn't that one reason why with 400 of us?
There was 400 back then too. There was 400 back then. Oh yeah. Our legislature right before World War II actually had 425 members. That's why back in World War II, it was actually more than 425. That's why back in World War II there was a constitutional amendment passed in the Hampshire Constitution that limits it to 425 members. We could have redistricted to more than 400 again. So it's always been a large legislature. It really has been. Nonetheless, the railroad interests, maybe it's harsh to say, but it's close to accurate to say, own the legislature.
Okay.
And so you found in Maine, the timber interests used to own the legislature.
Absolutely.
My concern is corruption of the legislature if we have a...
Corrupt us? How? With what?
by free passes.
We get $100 a year. What are they going to do? Give us brownies every Tuesday? I mean, how can they do what? Who's powerful enough to be, we'll call it a bribe, or being influenced? Who's powerful enough up there?
Well,
I'm not.
I don't have to answer this question because all the viewers are sitting back saying to themselves, Ken, come on. What do you mean? What are they going to give us?
Well,
they know.
red face over that. Yeah, I think I understand that. But you know, all you're talking about is the ill of it. What? Any good? 1,000 jobs?
You know, I'm not arguing against it.
500
I'm
extra
not arguing
rooms,
against it.
the best shows in the world, the greatest food in the world, greatest entertainment in the world. I've been to Vegas a lot. I think I've told you that. Because my mother, born here in New Hampshire. My father died 15 years later. She remarried, and they moved out there because of the weather. And they lived right in Vegas for a period of time. So I spent a lot of time. I don't gamble. I mean, Siegfried and Roy. I mean, that's.
No, I agree. I probably told
wonderful.
you. I probably told you at the same time when I about 20 years ago, 25 years ago, I was working for a client, and they put me on a board of directors of a company out in Los Angeles that used to meet once a month on Monday mornings. And I demonstrated to them, the company, that if you fly me to Las Vegas on a Saturday and put me up Saturday night and Sunday night, and then they fly on to L.A., it's cheaper than taking a Sunday night flight out to L.A. so I can be there Monday morning.
That's the truth.
It was actually, it was.
That is the truth.
And
it's cheaper to get to Vegas.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I would go to Las Vegas, and like you, perhaps like you, certainly I hate gambling. I hate losing so badly that I'll sit there and I've lost $20 and I'll get bitter about it. And so I just realized I don't like to gamble. But it was a great place to go. There's good shows out there, and
best of the food.
Yeah, the best food, and it was just fun. And once a month I'd go out there on a Saturday night, and I'd kick back on a Sunday and relax and read my novels and all that. And
relax in Las Vegas reading novels. I'm not sure about that, Bill. If I go.
Yeah, I did. I'd go. You'd always go and see a show. I remember seeing, Red Fox, who no one.
Oh yeah, that's right. No one would know.
No one knows who he is. Right, the comedian.
I know.
Righteous Brothers. So I remember seeing a bunch of good acts out there. So look at, nothing is unmitigated good or bad. And I haven't really made my mind up on the bill. As a kind of libertarian-oriented fellow, I just as soon allow people to make their individual choices as to whether something is a vice or not a vice, whether it's good for them or not good for them. I just get concerned about making the wrong choice and the effect that it would have on our state, its image. And I also get concerned about choosing winners in the marketplace. If we're saying there's one casino, why should we say that Rockingham Park? You get to have yours.
I absolutely I agree with you. That's really crazy.
One of my favorite legislators is I just like him a lot. Is Edmund Giannett from North Country? You know Edmund.
Yeah.
I can say this because I'm a short guy. He's a little short guy, and just a delightful rep. And he's represented his community of Lincoln well over the years, and they're very interested in getting a casino up there. He's worked hard on it. And how can I say to Edmund, your arguments are good, but they're only good down in Salem, they aren't good up in Lincoln. How can we say that?
Well, I happen to agree with you. I think competition is really good. And I think that if you had one, let's say, in Salem, and you had another one, up the country, they certainly could deal with one another. Stopping at one with maybe a package to go up to the other one to spend some time.
They'd probably attract, you'd get people who would come across the border from Quebec just because it'd be kind of novel,
Correct.
Go to Casino
right.
America. And so I just haven't made up my mind. And plus it surprises me at times the number of business people in the area that will support them, because my understanding is, for example, in Atlantic City, the casinos there were great for the casinos, weren't so good for Atlantic City because you go a block away from the casinos and all the businesses are shut down and everything. If you have these destination casinos and you have a restaurant in the area, all the people that used to go to your restaurant will start going to the casino.
Well, that's interesting that you would say that. And I'm sure when Vegas started, Vegas has been there a long time, but there are a lot of, I can't say the mom and pop restaurants, but there are lots of things off, off the strip. In fact, having been there enough, I would know to go up to somebody I would see there who I'd known lived in Vegas and say, where are you going to have your best time?
Right.
And the interesting thing, it wasn't on the strip. It was 4 back.
Yeah.
4 streets back. That's where, the waitresses and waiters go. I mean, this is where...
This is being recorded, Ken.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's okay. Well, that's...
I want you to be real careful.
Well,
here.
you must remember that whatever I did
you already, the statute of limitations is fully running whatever happened in Boston.
Well,
but
you see...
Las Vegas, somebody might check.
Yeah, but Bill, you see, I owned a nightclub here in New Hampshire that had 500 people, so I had to do research work.
Oh, okay.
So I did a lot of research work.
I bet you're a great researcher.
Oh, boy, I'll tell you. Yes, I was, and I'm getting ready again. I am. Yes, that was fun. But I honestly believe that if people take a look at it, just one more thing on it, and then we'll move on to something else. You know that I filed a bill because I thought we were going to get it last time, and the casino, and I filed a bill saying I wanted, as you have smoke-free, game-free areas inside of casinos, whereby when you walk in, usually into a casino, there it is. All the noise, all the...
Well, sure. I mean, it's part of their marketing is you have to always walk through a gambling area,
To do anything.
They pump the oxygen in and...
Yeah, to do anything. So my bill simply is, no, you don't have to walk. You can walk in and instead of taking a right, you take a left. Mm-hmm. It's the same rooms. It's nothing different. You want to go for a swim, you don't have to walk through the casinos, basically, to go to the swimming pool or to dinner or something like that. It's very simple. So for the people who don't like gaming, they still can come to New Hampshire and have a good time without, But yet, mom and dad might want to do that, and there's plenty of things for the kids to do. But that's what's going to take place, and I do hope it goes through. But I agree with you that we got to do more than one place.
Right, and I think they may lose a number of votes on that issue alone among some of the representatives. It's always been a strange combination of interests that has amounted to the majority in opposition. The social conservatives who vote against it, sort of on moral grounds. There's libertarians who vote against it because they say, if you're going to make a business legal, don't choose winners and losers. If you need to license it because it needs to be regulated and pay its own way for regulation, then anybody ought to be able to buy a license. It just
but that kind of philosophy somehow doesn't make it with me, and I'm going to tell you why. First of all, we both know sitting here that the only way it's going to pass is if we can get just one in.
The camel's nose
then
in
as
the
time
tent,
goes on and we calm down a little bit about this, so we can see that, guess what, it's manageable. Then to move licenses out where, and you can limit, like rooms, what are they going to, 400 rooms over there, 500 rooms, hotel rooms. Up north, you might 100.
So you're kind of proving the concern I had, which is you can limit the rooms here and there. And so the casino up in the North Country that's limited, say, to 100 rooms is going to come to us and say, I need 125 rooms. And then the hotel down the street that didn't get the license is going to say, you only have 75 rooms, but I need a license because I'm going to go out of business. I'm wondering
I'm trying to figure out who's the conservative and who's the liberal here. We're going back and forth like, no. No. All right. We could go on with this, but so right. Are you going to vote for gaming?
I'm going to look at the eventual bill that comes forward. I really am, and apply all those concerns that I mentioned. Generally, anything that is good for bringing jobs to people in New Hampshire, I'd like to promote. But I have to make sure that we're not choosing winners and losers, that we don't violate the principles of a free market. And I also have to be concerned about the effect that we're going to have on honest government in New Hampshire. I know you don't You're not concerned with it? I really am concerned.
Well,
I know you're concerned with honest government,
no,
but
of course we are.
not concerned
Of
that
course we
this
are.
might
No,
have
it's
the
just that
effect.
there's so many of us that they would, someone would have to get at least 25 people to agree on one thing and then to spread themselves out.
We have the third.
To go in and try to get more people to
Well,
vote or not to vote.
Yes and no, Ken. First of all, we have the third smallest Senate in the country. So
Yes.
there's, if it's a numbers game, the pressure can be more easily brought to bear there. And as you know, and because you've been there long enough, you say you have 400 representatives, but on any given issue, it can be 5 or 10 who are really the decision makers, both because they've been put in a position of formally making the decisions, committee chairs and so forth, or just because this is their issue and they get to know it really well and they can push it. So sure, you're right. How do you bribe 201 representatives to get a majority in a 400-member House? Well, you don't. And I think it's worked out well for New Hampshire. But that doesn't mean that on specific issues that a handful of representatives can't have an outside sized influence.
We've got some big issues. We have gaming. We also have decriminalization of marijuana. I mean, these are big. These are not small issues. These are
the biggest
game changes.
The biggest issue we have is that government's growing again, 16%.
Oh, good.
That's.
I thought we were going to get through with.
Well, no, because what's important to me after all the hard work we did in not raising any taxes and fees, reducing 20 taxes and fees, is that now we see 36 again increases so far that have been voted on, or new taxes and fees have been voted on in the House. 16% increase in budget. The same gimmicks. We're taking things out of the budget and saying, your budget was X. We're going to pass this budget. We're going to take something out of it. Oh, look, it's only 10% more than X. Well, yeah, but what about that?
Okay, so wait, let's see. What you're saying now is you're in a minority, okay?
Actually, I didn't say that.
What? Huh?
I didn't say that.
No, but I was going to.
What you were saying.
I did want to get it in. You were a majority, so you suggesting that maybe because there are these fees added, or you can call them taxes if you wish, and you certainly will, you think there will be another turnaround?
Oh, I think we live in a state where there's going to be some swings from election to election. I think the choice that your party, the Democrats, are making to increase taxes the way they are, increase the size of the budget, may well exacerbate it. I'm not going to be running again as a New Hampshire legislator. That's for darn sure. And so, I can kind of step back and say, what's this going to look like next term? And I think you guys are pushing the envelope a little bit too much to preserve your majority.
Well, we'll see. It's going to be very fascinating. I was watching TV before we came here, and gun control. This happens to be the big thing across the country, and I take it serious. You and your wife both belong, I believe, to a gun club, and shoot. And congratulations! I'm glad if you own a gun, you know how to use it. I mean,
right.
The great fear I think is people owning them and not knowing how to use them.
You like anything else of that nature, you should know what you're doing, and go out and do it every once in a while to make sure that you're not a danger to yourself or others.
All right, Are you against background checks?
I'm concerned about the government unnecessarily putting itself in a position to grant or withhold permission for us to exercise constitutional rights, including our Second Amendment right. So I'm very concerned about what they're trying to do with background checks.
Well, wait a minute. There are background checks now. I think what they're trying to do is to get gun shows.
What they're trying to do is burden our rights.
Yeah, well,
because this solves none of it. any one
Well,
of
I
those,
thought-
any one of
wait
those
a- wait a
mass
minute.
massacres.
Didn't you just say the other week when I got beat up, not beat up, but treated very nicely with the other two Republicans that look at Obama's city where he's from, look at all the murder rate, and he's gun control, it's not working. Well,
so
guess what? One of the reasons why it's not working is that there are no background checks for a lot of these people.
Oh, heavens.
Gun shows.
Ken, Ken, you don't believe that. You can't, up until the McDonald case, you couldn't own a gun in Chicago, background check or not. If you were a private citizen, you couldn't own one. And somehow or another, that was gun control nirvana. Chicago should have been, if there's any logic to this argument that we need greater restriction of our Second Amendment rights because we'll be safer, Chicago should have been the safest place in the world.
Yeah, but what they're doing is they're shooting themselves. The criminals are shooting criminals.
Because they have
also.
guns. The background checks doesn't stop
well,
that. You know what?
No, but that's not where the guns are coming from. That's my point. My point is that Chicago is that tough. So they go into the surrounding areas that are very lenient. Now, I have a question.
We don't know that.
Well, how are they getting the guns?
I read this about 5 or 6 years ago.
How are they getting the guns?
Because how do they get the guns?
Steal them?
And part of them they do steal them. The criminals have guns. Criminals don't go for background checks. All these things we're trying to do are doing nothing more than burdening lawful people and telling them you can't have personal protection. You can't exercise your Second Amendment rights. Because you want to know what? If you're a gang member, you're not going to be sitting there going, I better do a background check.
Wait,
they don't do it. They just buy them off the street.
Wait a minute. You don't think, but are you saying that everyone should not have a background check who wants to buy a gun?
I'm saying,
mentally ill people?
I'm saying that the bills in front of Congress don't begin to address the problems we've had with shootings by, in schools and in some of these other gun-free zones. And so what we have is nothing more than big government people trying to control us more and using the emotion of unrelated events to gain that control.
Well,
background checks wouldn't have stopped Adam Lanza, the shooter down in Newtown. They could have given him all kinds of background checks in the world. It wouldn't have stopped him from buying any of those guns.
Background checks
or his mother in this case.
There will be background checks. But the Republicans are very smart because wasn't it 72 hours for a background check? And if they couldn't do it within 72 hours, you got the gun anyway?
Well, I think actually the background checks now are instantaneous. Having purchased weapons over the years, they can call right in while you wait. It may take a while, but there's 2 people at all times up in Concord, actually, at the Department of Safety, who get the calls, from Ken Gidge is going to buy a handgun.
That would make news.
Probably not call in your case.
But I go to a gun show, man.
Yeah. So, no, I mean, it's pretty much, it's not instantaneous, but it's real time. You don't have to wait 72 hours or so forth.
Well, the best way to do this, I think, for the Republicans would agree on background checks, but if you can't get it within 24 hours. And New Hampshire is an unusual. No one can call in. No one can call in.
What are you trying to achieve? Just theoretically, you think we ought to put more burden on people?
Well, all right, okay. How about magazines? Should someone have a handgun where they can kick a magazine in and shoot 35 shots out of a pistol?
Perhaps. What are you trying to achieve?
Well, but this guy who killed 20 kids in 6 teachers, he did 154 shots.
And the guy in China who stabbed people, a bunch of students, 20 students had a knife. I mean, should we have background checks on knives? I mean, there's evil in the world.
And there were people who throw rocks at each other.
One of the ways that you protect yourself from evil is to have personal protection. The problem with Newtown, in my estimation, was that a young, disturbed person who, by the way, all this anti-bullying legislation that's been the rage in this country for the last 10 or 15 years, didn't work for this kid. He was bullied, he was mentally ill, and he went in and did evil. and he went to the one place that you can act out your evil and not be opposed immediately when you're going to be committing suicide by mass murder, that you go to a school or you go to a mall. And if we had personal protection, if you knew that there's a good likelihood that when you walk in there, a teacher's going to take out a gun and oppose you, it won't happen. It's the same reason that our legislature has never had any metal detectors over the years. It's because anyone who's disturbed enough to use a gun to harm others knows, don't go to the New Hampshire State House.
Don't go to the New Hampshire State House.
Because it's not going to be a place where you can do that.
No, and that's factual. In fact, I'm one of the only Democrats who voted with the Republicans on that part of having the right to carry guns, only because I didn't know there was not a law when I first got there, because I knew people were carrying guns. And I went, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then we made it legal, and then now we've, House rules.
I started to talk to you before about when I was up there the first term, so this would have been like 2005, 2006. We get these publications that would just come randomly, and one that started coming to me was the Harvard University Journal for, I think it's called Law and Social Policy. A well-written journal with articles, looks like a law review journal to me. And it had one, and so I read it, they're really well done. And one of them was an article that was written by two professors from University of California, and the third professor was for the University of Vancouver. And they were saying, we started out with the intent of showing that gun control laws work. And we wanted to do it empirically, look at places where there hadn't been any or had been laxed, and where significant controls were put in.
Where did they do the study?
And so they looked at Britain, they looked at Australia, they looked at various states in the United States where gun control legislation had at some point or another been significantly strengthened. And what they found was the exact opposite of what they intended to show. And they were very candid in the introduction to this. We intended to show gun control legislation works to reduce violence in society, works to reduce murder rates, and we found the exact opposite.
Excuse me, I think in Britain they had 18 murders last year.
We have 18 you want to know,
in UK, and they don't have guns. So the question is, how many do we have a day
in the United States? You want to know who has a significantly higher home invasion rate? Britain. If you're an older person like we are, you can't have a gun in your house. And so if you're a younger person, 18, 22, 24, you can go with impunity into someone's house. Something we don't see.
So what you're saying is there's only 18 people killed, but there's more robberies. So what we ought to do
there's more rapes.
So we ought to.
There's more robbery.
So we ought to give everybody
invasion.
Guns.
No, we ought to allow people to have the choice whether or not they are going to have that personal protection. We ought to give them choice. The Democrats are so big on choice when it comes to ending the lives of babies in the womb. But they're not. They won't want to hear anything about choice.
You guys want to?
They don't want to have any choice.
This is a whole show between me and you.
They don't want to have any choice when it comes to personal protection.
Listen, now to get it, and we weren't heading in this way. You brought us here. Now they're saying that the moment the sperm touches the egg, that's it.
Have you been following that case?
I mean, have you? So they show that a needle, going in, and an egg, and then depositing some sperm, that's considered a life.
I'll tell you what it isn't. It isn't a judicial decision. It should be a legislative decision. And that's the problem with Roe v. Wade, is they took away from the people the right to make a decision, whether that's it, or viability, or heartbeat, or whatever else. Have you been following that case down in Philadelphia? Because the media has been, the mass media, mainstream media, has been absolutely silent on it. So I'm actually fairly curious. There's a doctor down there who ran an abortion clinic, and he's on trial for murder now. Because what would happen is that he would abort children, and they would be alive, and he would kill them.
And he would kill them. First of all, I don't believe that.
You don't believe it happened?
No, I don't believe that happened. No, not at all.
Even though the evidence in the case
Well,
is
I mean, you're a lawyer. You're smarter than me about such matters. But no, I don't believe that.
It's not a lawyer. It's just there's no one's disputing.
Then you've also heard that was it Texas that stopped funding, clinics of all sorts. Let's say they performed abortions, but the majority of their work was
they didn't do that.
For young ladies and men, and it had more to do with
they
testing of all sorts of things. But because they had abortions, well, we're not going to fund that anymore.
No, they stopped funding Planned Parenthood in their state, and that in itself is a whole show. We could go into who founded Planned Parenthood, Margaret Sanger. The fact that she would push birth control because she thought it was a great way to keep minority populations from growing.
Oh God!
We can talk about where that comes from.
We ought to do a show like that, because that's not really fair to me. I mean, well, I'm not that intelligent. I mean, I need a little time to figure these things out.
We'll talk about it at some point. But I was just curious. I mean, because here you have an outrageous set of circumstances. Which isn't unusual. You think, well, when errant doctor, outrageous evidence, who knows whether it's true or not. And yet you probably saw a week or two ago that there was some testimony in front of a state legislative committee in Florida. I mean, this actually was reported by the mass media, in which a lobbyist, I think again from Planned Parenthood, was asked the question during, we conduct legislative committee hearings, was asked the question, if a child is born alive as a result of a botched abortion, is it the duty of the doctor, should it be the duty, because they were actually considering this legislation, should it be the duty of the doctor to do all that is medically possible to preserve the life of the child? And the answer was, well, that's between the woman and her doctor. And so we have a life.
I know
we have
that,
a life existing, and the militancy has become so extreme.
I hear what you're saying, and that's really not fair, especially to doctors or parents. You can have something that's alive during an abortion. There's no question about that. It's something is alive. Okay, it's stopped. But where is it?
A human being.
No, wait a minute. No. Okay. All right, I will agree with you on that. But and I don't want women to have abortions. But I would like women, and Republicans should better get onto this. I would like women to have their choice. Hopefully, they make the right choice to do whatever they wish with their bodies. That's what I believe. You Republicans went against that, and you could see what's happened as far as the Republican Party. It didn't quite do very well in the presidential campaign. Women are really...
Ken, one of the points I want to make was the remark you just made is there's no reason for the Republicans to go into an existential crisis because we didn't win an election. That happens. People win elections, they don't win elections. I noted that with the Democrats in New Hampshire, when they lost 3/4 of the House, you were down to 103 members.
I know.
People didn't take Ray Buckley and Kathy Sullivan and drag them out of the headquarters by feet first and throw them out into gutters. They didn't have an existential crisis. Maybe you should have, but you didn't.
I happen to agree that we should have. And I've said this before.
They stepped back and said, how can we be more effective in getting our message out there? We have to be more effective. If that's your argument, we have to be more effective in getting our message out there. I'd absolutely agree with you. Do we have to stop being the party that is concerned about liberty, limited government, personal responsibility, the party that is concerned about those issues? Absolutely not. Do we have to stop being the party that's concerned about family, the strength of our families? Do we have to be the party that agrees with those in your party that say children belong to the community, not to their parents? No, we don't. We have to be more effective in communicating.
Wait, excuse me. You made those points really good, you guys. The Republicans made those points really good. And the majority of the voters who went out obviously did not believe, what you were saying. Maybe they didn't believe, maybe the how it was said, who said it, it just wasn't believed because the majority of this country feels exactly what you said. Why? Because, well, you said it before, you know, a pencil and a tablet.
Yeah, and so you just answered my question. The majority agrees with us. And why didn't they elect us? Well, because we didn't get to them either the importance of those issues or that we were fully with them on those issues.
Well, you know, we're almost at the hour, believe it or not. Yeah. We didn't really know where we were going. We didn't get into this.
Why wouldn't you talk about that? Because that's really important. You've done a lot of work on
that. No, we've got 4 minutes, 3 minutes, and we've got to stay at 1 hour, but we'll talk about this next time.
But we should just mention what it is.
Okay, this right here happens to be the new laws for corporate laws that are coming in, the big change. And I'm not taking credit, I'm not taking any credit, but I was the only person who grabbed these last year and said, wait a minute, let's take a look at these. And the Secretary of State found something in them. They stopped it. We voted, I guess, to send this to the Senate to do a study. Right. The Senate was running for political office. You know, so they didn't do it. They put it back to the House. Secretary of State, they worked it on a little. They threw this at us, and they want this done, this whole thing done within less than a week to bring it out to the floor and then supposedly to pass that. And I'm the only guy yelling and screaming, no, hold on a second. You can hold. But anyway.
It's important.
And I didn't even get in the subcommittee, which we talked about earlier.
Well, and I think it's important for you to mention this. We ought to spend more time on it because it illustrates for the viewers of this show something they really ought to think about, which is you and I will talk about hot button issues and we immediately go to it and all.
Yes.
But much of what we do is represented in just hard legislative work, making sure, for example, that our corporation laws work well, that they're updated, that they're attractive to businesses across the country.
Correct.
And
it's done properly.
Yes.
And the citizens who live here who get into a corporation by buying stocks, et cetera, are not taken advantage of.
And so we see that happening. You know, there's folks in so many different areas, folks on Fish and Game who are working hard on our laws relating to that issue, agricultural laws and so forth on committee. And I think people ought to be, as we argue back and forth. We
argue back and forth, but
they ought to realize so much of it goes into that.
This is this. And by the way, this is, I'm the only, well, it was Hunt who wanted the side-by-side. That means old and new together.
Right.
It was me who continued on it, and finally we got a side-by-side, and with the side-by-side, guess what? We found errors, and I still want to pass it.
I know.
Why do I go through all this stuff? I don't know.
Well, because you care, and it's the same reason that a lot of legislators do, because we care. You know, we have pride of position. We have a real concern for our state.
I think New Hampshire's lucky.
Yeah, we really
lucky.
are.
They may not be happy with you, and they certainly may not be happy with me, but so you have a website or?
Well, at this point, you know, if people need to get a hold of me, they can certainly call me, 673-6610. My email is williamlobrien@gmail.com, and I'll have a website soon.
Pretty soon, that's right. And my name is Ken Gidge. You can get me at Gidge World, which is an art site. I have a email address, kgidge, that's K-G-I-D-G-E, @AOL.com. Also, you can get me through my cell, which is 603-864-9332.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Another good show.
See you.